Time for a little get back for the Philadelphia 76ers. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show, live from the Xfinity mobile studio, along with Derek, Kyle. I'm Devin Bree, President of Basketball Operations. We are presented by Bet365, wherever the moment is ever ordinary at Bet365. We thank all of you for hanging out with us on this Saturday night. What else would you be doing when it feels like it's minus 10 degrees outside? Staying in and getting ready to watch your basketball team, and we're preparing you for that one. Stay in the house, everybody, because it is, in fact, cold outside. I'm a little jealous of the Sixers on this West Coast trip where they're hitting all these
little jealous.
You ain't lying, buddy, because, oh, my God, I went to take the dog out about a half hour ago. It felt like I was getting punched in the face.
Yeah, man. Brutal. So with our pregame picks, we're trying to stay hot with those and making sure that you put in a good ticket for tonight's game. We'll do that a little bit later. Give you the starters of tonight's game, who's in and out. And how about we talk about them playing a full, complete game like they didn't do against Los Angeles on Thursday to get that win and go 3-0 on this 5-game trip. But, hey, we'll talk about that one as we start off, though, because – a little payback here, Kyle, is good for the Sixers potentially. These two teams met on January 20th here in Philadelphia, and the Suns defeat the Sixers by 6 points, 116-110. And no Joel Embiid for that game, no Paul George for that game. You had Devin Booker, Jalen Green came back. Of course, Edgecome, Oubre, and Maxey. Those three had 20 points each for the guys. Edgecome with 25, 7 boards. Oubre, 21 and 4 rebounds. Maxey had 20.7 assists. On the Suns side, the only starter to score over 20 points was Devin Booker with 27 points. Collin Gillespie had 12, knocked in a couple of threes, but Royce O'Neal struggled. Same thing for Dillon Brooks. He struggled from the floor as well. But it was the bench, Kyle, in that game that really went off, where they defeated the Sixers that night. It was a 56-28. And we just talked about the bench recently. 56-28 advantage in favor of Phoenix, with Allen, Goodwin with 16 each, Green and Iguodala with 12 points each off the bench. So that's how the Sixers lost that one. It wasn't the starters. It was the reserves. It was the complementary players getting things done. And the Sixers need to make sure that that is not the problem, but also slowing down the starters tonight and not letting them get off with a little payback tonight.
Well, so part of the reason that the bench got going for Phoenix, Devon, was because of how the Sixers decided they were going to defend Devin Booker, and because of the help principles that we've talked about, debated with people, discussed whether they should change them for basically the whole year. And Grayson Allen was a big part of that, right? He's out tonight, so that's a loss for them. And a lot of what we saw in the second half of that game was send into it Booker, or late help on Booker to force the ball out of his hands, and they were willing to concede open corner threes to guys like Allen, who made them pay. And so, do they come out with that same kind of mentality tonight? Who are the guys on the scout that they're willing to say, hey, we'd rather continue with these same help principles. We'd rather double Devin Booker in the middle of the floor and give shots up to whoever it might be. Jalen Green, because he's back tonight. Gillespie's going to play a big role. They do have some, slight roster changes. Nick Richards went out at the deadline, so he's not an option for them in terms of the front court guys. So we'll see exactly what tweaks to the rotation they make as the roster settles in here. But yeah, Joel Embiid being back is a big game changer equalizer, because they didn't have him. And while Maxey scored 20, that was a pretty ugly 20 for him. He did not play well in the first matchup. It really was VJ carrying the offense for stretches of that game. As I think that was the game where it really peaked the discussion of, boy, Maxey looks tired. He's got no legs. He's missing a lot of jump shots. And that hasn't necessarily disappeared at this point, obviously, but you would hope that he's able to turn in a better game tonight. So we'll see what kind of impact Joel has right away, where if he can put Mark Williams into foul trouble, now it's, how do they defend him with smaller guys on the bench? Because Malawach appears not to be an option for them this year, and he's one of the only like-sized guys they have to throw at him. So see what Joel does to alter the spacing and just the general vibe of this game.
No, really, like any game played without Joel, it's almost impossible to then take too much from it when you have him back in that lineup tonight. It is one where so many teams have been sending extra help Tyrese's way. You throw that in, mix that in with tired legs, and a lot of the shooting slump can be explained by those two factors alone. Joel will create a lot more space. Like Kyle mentioned, that he will have a matchup advantage pretty much every trip down the floor. So we will see how well they exploit it. To me, it really comes down to the defensive side of the court. This is a team that has been giving up some threes recently. Their scheme kind of, puts them in a position where they will give up some threes, and then also some bad perimeter defense, some bad transition defense where they don't get matched up, makes that problem a little bit worse. So I'm really interested to see how well they defend it, what their scheme is against Booker, and quite frankly, just how locked in they are. Because when this team is locked in, you can see them forcing turnovers. You can see them, jump back out and contest shots. But when they are a step slow, it can get ugly at times. So that to me will be a real key. And obviously, in that last matchup, the Suns hit a bunch of threes and hit them at a really good rate.
Muted.
When you look at Dillon Brooks,
first one of the night, baby.
Gotta get it out of the way
in pregame.
Vaughn was going to just try to talk through that and act like he meant to do that, and Kyle just wouldn't let it drop.
Meant to do that? No, but absolutely just hit that mute button so we can get right back to it and just talk through everything. But no, just thinking back to that game, just not seeing how good we just talked about how comfortable VJ Edgecome looked against the Lakers, and even on this trip in general, and how good he was that night. That was, again, when Kelly Oubre had just started to, when you said it, this was the first time we saw, Kyle, that Tyrese Maxey started to look a little fatigued. That's when we saw Kelly Oubre, and we're saying, oh, he's finally get his legs back underneath him now after coming back from that long time off. So when you look at that part of it too, after not having a good game for Oubre this past Thursday against Los Angeles, VJ Edgecome, a decent enough game to help them win, but some mistakes down the stretch. Tyrese Maxey, as you pointed out already, look, they have 3 games left. With these 2 on the road, and then they come back from New York on Wednesday, which is the final game before the All-Star break, just simply giving it all you have left, leaving it all out on the floor, and a break is coming. Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecome, they will be at the All-Star game. They will be participating in both of those games of Rising Stars. For Edgecome, Maxey, of course, for All-Star on Sunday. After that, they get some time off. So I understand the fatigue is there. We've seen it impact the game here and there, but he's been able to do enough to help them along this 5-game streak before it was snapped on Thursday night. Really, really need him to be better than what he did because, to your point, this Phoenix Suns team can run. And also, they are top 5 in terms of points given up in the NBA defensively. And they can get a little stingy, especially when they start to hit their outside shots from O'Neal to Allen's not there, but Booker, Gillespie, Brooks hitting his shots as well. You have Goodwin knocking down his shots. Things can get ugly pretty quickly for this team. And that's how we saw things kind of pull away from the Sixers in that January 20 matchup. And you hope that you don't see it again. And after the way things did play out on Thursday, having a day off, watching the film, cleaning up some of the mistakes that really hurt them in that second half, I do believe that, again, they can match up with this team pretty well tonight, especially with Mark Williams being the only big. We talked about, hey, get these guys like DeAndre Ayton in foul trouble when you don't have a viable backup behind them. Get somebody like Mark Williams who can be a little jumpy, get him in some foul trouble, get him off the floor, make them make a decision of how they're going to defend the Sixers in that way. They may try to force the ball out of Joel's hands, and that's where Maxey is really going to have to be the Maxey that we expect to see to hurt them because of that. So defensively, guard the three-point line and do not give up easy layups in the paint. And offensively, as you guys just pointed out, just execute really well. And the Sixers are a top team in the NBA at protecting the basketball. One of the best, around 13, 14 turnovers a night. It's pretty darn good. Don't get loose with the basketball. Force your turnovers, of course, and get out and make some baskets with on this Phoenix Suns team.
And look, some of this is Maxey just has to play better recently in that Suns matchup before. The Lakers game the other night, like the passing stats are good, but I brought up the other night, I thought he let the Lakers off the hook a little bit with the types of shots that he's taking. Like, even if he's not attacking the paint to score, knowing that teams are going to load up in the paint and say, we don't want you to get to the rim, and we're going to force shots to Kelly Oubre, Don Barlow, VJ Edgecombe, Trendon Watford, like whoever it might be in the rotation. You're letting your defender off the hook by saying, all right, we're going to play one-on-one step back three basketball, and that it makes you easy to guard. It's going to make the contests a lot closer and, increase the difficulty of all those shots, which are already difficult shots in the first place, right? Maxey makes a lot of step back threes, but it's a very difficult shot. But his ability to hit guys on the drop offs, the kick outs, like get those guys open threes. Like I know there's always a balance, right? Some people say, hey, you start 4 for 20 from three as a team, stop taking threes. I think one of the big problems with this team is they don't get enough threes up. And part of the way you're going to get them up is Tyrese Maxey getting downhill, spraying the ball around the floor. And so I want to see him play with that type of downhill mentality tonight. I think he plays better that way. I think they play better when he's that way. And then on Joel's end of it, Devon, like we mentioned, the trying to get guys in foul trouble, he had a great first half, but a lot of it was just jab step, long two, jab step, long two, jab step, long two. And while they did a really good job of generating the matchups that they wanted against the Lakers, they're just using little brush screens, and the Lakers are switching most of those. So it's like, hey, Joel versus Jared Vanderbilt, Joel versus Jake LaRavia, whoever it might be. I think what you have to do is, if you're going to force those switches, get those switches closer to the basket and not have it be such a jump shot fest, because as we talked about the other day, there's a domino effect. If you get that first big in foul trouble, or if you get into the bonus on those type of switches early, that puts Joel at the line. It slows you down. He's scoring. You're getting into your half-court defense on the other end. Like, there are just a lot of positive effects of playing that style. So I hope that Joel takes it to Mark Williams early in this game, and then you see all the benefits that come from that.
All right, let's take our pause here on the pregame show. When we come back, we'll talk about simply just playing a complete game, a little bit more about our discussion here. And also, Daryl Morey, you had a chance to speak yesterday after the trade deadline. Kyle and Derek were there. And if you haven't seen on their personal Twitter accounts or at PHLY_Sixers on Twitter for our show account, the guys are here, let you know what took place at the press conference, what was said as the trade deadline has come to an end. When we come back, we'll get into all that. Our pregame picks as well. Sixers Suns tonight, we're previewing right here on the PHLY Sixers pregame show.
And guys, next up, we want to tell you about Xfinity and their 5-year price guarantee. What if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi? And what if you could keep it at the same price for 5 years? That's the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them, like super intelligent Wi-Fi with a sixth sense. And that lets you stream the game even when the whole family's online. All your devices working in perfect harmony for 5 whole years. And here's the best part. No annual contracts, no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment included. Take it from me, a lot can change in 5 years. Championships are won, records are broken, dreams grow bigger. But your Wi-Fi, it should stay reliable, and the price should stay put. Lock in your price and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans only. Restrictions apply.
Time to tell you about our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Over 90 million users worldwide, 780 live events each year, and you get early payouts in the NBA and the NHL. Where else are you getting that? Nowhere but Bet365. And you can always find great super profit boosts, regular profit boosts as well. It's a great place to place your wagers on the games that you love. Also, for new customers and new customers only, guess what? You get $200 in bonus bets when you sign up. That's right, win or lose. You're also getting that nowhere else but Bet365. All you have to do is sign up using the code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and you get $200 in bonus bets credit to your account. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back here on PHLY Sixers pregame show, Derek, Kyle, Devon, Bree, all of you, we thank you. I was looking at, Bree had one that she flashed up on the screen, Art saying, finishing off this road trip would be big. 4-1 would do the trick on this 5-game trip, where we talked about, hey, it's always 3-2 would be satisfactory. But if you can do much better, I said 4-1. I remember one day, and Kyle was like, why not 5-0? Well, 4-1 would do pretty
out
darn
the window,
good.
baby. Unfortunately,
4-1 would do all right though if they're able to close this one out tonight against the Suns, and then Monday wrapping things up in Portland against the Trailblazers. All right, Derek, just simply after the mistakes again that were made in the second half against the Lakers, playing a complete game would help get that third win of this trip in 4 games. What do you want to see in terms of making sure that that doesn't happen once again for this team?
Yeah, well, I think like most games, the possession battle is going to be big. Phoenix forces a lot of turnovers, third in the league at forcing turnovers. But really, the offensive glass is where, I think they are a team who are a disaster on the defensive glass, but they're really strong, top 7 on the offensive glass. And Joel, he's going to have an obvious advantage here, but he's got to keep Mark Williams off the offensive glass. Phoenix doesn't get a ton at the rim. In fact, in terms of percentage of their shots, they're second fewest in the league shots at the rim. So Joel's got to be able to, he's not going to have to worry about a whole ton of driving threats. Hopefully, you're not going to have to step out and really contest a lot of floaters or stuff at the rim. Stay in position, keep Williams off the glass, and win the possession battle, and you'll give yourself a much better chance.
So let me start the same place I've started and finished many arguments about this team recently. Stagger your damn stars. Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. If one of you is not on the floor for a single minute of this game, go over to your coach and say, hey, coach, have you ever thought about this radical strategy of simply having one of your 2 best players on the floor at all given times? So that I keep banging this drum and I keep getting mad when they don't do it, but sometimes it's that simple. You cannot, especially with Paul George out of the lineup, at least when he's in the rotation, you can say, okay, VJ and Paul, they've gotten a bunch of reps together as like the main 2 in some of these backup lineups. And Paul is a good enough creative force that you can trust them there. With Paul out, you cannot leave VJ to die with Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre, Watford, Bona, or some combination of similar players like that. So that's where I have to start, because the other night, that frankly, the game was still, while the lead was slipping away a little bit, that was where it felt like the Lakers really felt they were into this game again, and they went on a run. And then the fourth quarter starts, and Reeves is just going crazy. And like at that point, the start of the fourth, I tipped my hat to Austin Reeves, because he was going bonkers in that game, hitting shots over VJ that like VJ's got a hand here, and he's still making tough contested threes. So you tip your hat there, but you can't let it get to that point. And so you have to be a little bit more deliberate with when your subs are, who your subs are. And I know that's a very basic way to look at it when it's, there are all these little granular matchup things. I think Derek's right. The possession battle is critical. And that was a big problem against the Lakers the other night. They had 7 turnovers in the third quarter. Devon, you brought up that this has been a team that takes really good care of the basketball. And I think Tyrese Maxey is pretty uniquely good at protecting the ball, in part because he shoots a lot. So when you shoot the ball, it's hard to turn it over. But he's been very good since he's risen to this role as, lead option on the perimeter at the very least, but also just lead option for the team. So if you don't allow the Suns to get out and run, where they're playing a lot of these, I don't want to say guards, it's a lot of, Dillon Brooks and Royce O'Neal, like just a bunch of athletes who will get out on the break and finish on you or shoot threes. Devin Booker, we know, can pull up from anywhere on the break as well. So if you stop them from getting out on the break, their offense just is not as good. Their offense is right around mid-pack, similar to the Sixers for this year. They want to use their defense to hurt you on the other end. And so that, to me, is at the heart of tonight's game. Can you protect the basketball? And then if so, you're giving yourself a much better chance to get back, get set in your defense, and lock these guys down on the other end of the floor.
Yep, absolutely. And Luka, by the way, is out tonight for the Lakers. the injury since we saw them play the Sixers. He got hurt in that Thursday game. He's out tonight for the Lakers. But for me, I just think it's also, I agree with both of you, but looking at those lineups, if he doesn't stagger them most of the time, and it is VJ out there with someone else, you need a better Kelly Oubre game than we saw the last game, at least more under control, like we've seen him over the past couple of weeks where he's been really good. He needs to be better tonight, both offensively and defensively, because we tout him a lot for his defense, and he wasn't good. I mean, Reeves was just getting right by him in that second half, and that's not the Kelly Oubre that we have been accustomed to seeing since he's gotten back. And they need a better performance from Oubre tonight so Phil can come in here later on and talk his smack about getting him a new contract, because that wasn't one of his better games, and they're going to need it tonight against this Phoenix Suns team. All right, Kyle, Derek, you were both at the Daryl Morey press conference on Friday. Kyle, just to start with you, many people were talking about the question that you did, in fact, ask about the McCain deal and the whole plan of it all, and not getting anything back, and just your question overall that really sparked a lot of debate. And people were happy to hear that you asked the question about McCain and all, and the return. But just your takeaways from the press conference. Everybody go read allphly.com, of course, but your takeaways from the press conference post-trade deadline.
Well, so, and I'm going to pat Derek on the back here as well for being very specific about his questions regarding the luxury tax and other topics on Friday. Can we finally understand that you can ask questions that are useful without being a blowhard, grandstanding, whatever word you want to use that I can't say on fast channels, and get useful information out of people?
Are you talking about anyone in particular, Kyle?
Oh, you know,
you have
you guys can
a
go
rant
back
posted on the channel somewhere that might.
No, you know, but maybe some people can take notes that you don't have to have that kind of approach to a press conference and can actually get useful information instead. Anyway, so the big takeaway for me was really just the confirmation of what I said throughout the week, what I believed coming into the press conference, which was Daryl Morey basically saying this was about talent evaluation with Jared McCain, like their belief. And I was surprised that he said it the way that he did, to say that they believed they were selling high. You don't really get admissions like that, or, you know, just statements like that often on the record. So I thought that was revealing that they were willing to stick their necks out there and say, we just don't think his value is going to go up in the future. So that's a pretty big statement to make. And, you know, Jared made his debut today, got a standing O from the fans in OKC. We'll see how that plays out over time. Aside from that, I guess the takeaway was, I don't want to say I've softened on, man, I can't believe they didn't do anything. But as I've asked around, talked to people, looked at what happened at the deadline, it's like, man, there really weren't a lot of guys in their kind of bracket of players that they need who moved. And that wasn't so much about the presser as all the conversations I've had since. But yeah, that's where my mind goes. It's like, okay, they really didn't value McCain that much. And we're going to see who comes out on the right end of that equation, because it's a big statement to make, to basically say, we don't think that guy will ever be more valuable for the rest of his career. Like I think it's almost like it's the most honest Daryl has probably ever been in a presser, right or wrong.
Yeah. And look, part of it is, Kyle asked him, like, why should we believe that you're selling high? Like, Kyle basically used that wording in the question. But if you're Daryl, you just can't repeat that wording back, because that's going to be a soundbite. And like, I encourage everyone to go to our YouTube. We have the entire 29-minute press conference post, so you can get the full context, because he did say a lot of complimentary things about McCain. I think what Daryl was trying to say was, like, in the short term, we don't think he's going to be in the right spot for his value to go up and for us to get more in the trade in the short term. Not necessarily that, like, he's never going to get better as a prospect, but he phrased it horrifically in that spot. And quite frankly, like, it's not even like that specific quote was taken out of context, because there really wasn't a whole lot of context said right in that answer. Like, he was then asked follow-up questions about that answer, where he gave more context on his views on McCain. But it's not like that was just a small clip of a longer answer. That was pretty much his answer to that question, which was that some people noticed it. But like I said, he did end up saying a lot of pretty complimentary things about McCain. And look, I think there is a rational reason to want those draft picks over McCain and to, quite frankly, want the extra flexibility under the tax of getting, if McCain's not going to be in your rotation next year, that $4.5 million, like when we start adding in Quentin's next contract, adding in Kelly's next contract, you can get the luxury tax real quick. I'm not even going to bother talking about the apron, because if you don't go past the luxury tax, apron's completely irrelevant. But if he's not going to be in the rotation, I could understand it. I disagree with that evaluation. I think I have a higher opinion of Jared than they do. But to me, it comes back to, if you're going to make that trade, and trading Jared for picks is a future-looking move, you've got to do something to help your team now, because you do have a core, and an older core, and an uncertain core that's performing pretty close to the top of what you would expect from the three of them. You really got to be aggressive. And maybe that means you overpay. Maybe that means you bring in a guy who isn't perfect, but can give you minutes. Maybe that means, being a little bit more creative, or trying to manufacture luck, like having, Quentin on a balloon contract that they elected not to do because they wanted to make sure they could duck the tax if need be. And if you're frustrated as a fan, like, I 100% get it. Even though I can wrap my head around the Jared trade, even if it's one that's tough, you can at least see logic behind it. You want them to look like they are seizing the moment, and they're nowhere near doing that. And, that's why, because Daryl brought up, we have paid the tax. Okay, Josh has paid the tax 2 years and 15 years of ownership. I think there's 4 teams who have paid more in luxury tax this year than Josh's entire 15 years. But it's been 4 years now where they've gotten under the tax at the deadline. And Daryl was like, look, we had authorization to go over the tax if we had the, right trade to present to Josh. It wasn't there. I hope the way that I will defeat this notion is that eventually we will, have that trade presented to us, and I will take it to Josh. But it's incredibly frustrating, because I, quite frankly, am not going to believe that they're going to pay the luxury tax until they do it again, because it does seem like Josh is just not going to do it unless they're an inner circle title contender. And I worry that by always setting yourself up to duck the tax, you're making it tougher for you to be an inner circle title contender.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it is, where we are.
All right. Make sure, again, on our YouTube page, you can go watch the full conversation with the media there from Daryl Morey, the explanation of everything right there on our YouTube page at PHLY_sports. All right, let's get to the starters there tonight for the Sixers. The usual 5: Joel Embiid, Dominic Barlow, and Kelly Oubre in the front court. VJ Edgecome, Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt. And for the Phoenix Suns, you have Collin Gillespie, Devin Booker, Dillon Brooks, Royce O'Neal, and Mark Williams for tonight's starters for the Phoenix Suns. So should be a good one. No surprises there with the starting lineup. So let's get to our pregame picks presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. All right, what do we have here, Bree? We have Bree going for 20 for Devin Booker. VJ Edgecombe to knock down 2+ threes. That's a +155. I went with straight up threes as well, although Bree went with the points with Booker. Maxey and Collin Gillespie both knocking down 3 triples each. +160 for mine. If you like 3 of those combined, or you like all 4 of them together, or maybe you want to substitute some, make sure you go to go to Bet365 and use your 30% profit boost there at Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up.
This might be a little out of pocket for me, because I'm not making these bets, so I'm not putting myself out there. But those were a little bit lukewarm. Scared money ain't making money. Come on.
Well, oh, okay. Settle. I was about to say I'm riding with Bet and Bree tonight. Bet and Bree, I'm with you.
That's why you combine them, Derek, and then you put them together, and it's more money. There you go. Yeah. And if you're a new customer, you sign up, $200, deposit 10, place a bet for 5, and you get your $200 back, win or lose, right there at Bet365. So that is absolutely not scared money right there. They're giving you $200 at Bet365 if you haven't signed up. Go for it at Bet365. All right, that'll do it for us here on the pregame show. Sixers look for their 3rd win on the trip, a little revenge against the Phoenix Suns and pick up the pieces from Thursday night in a game that we thought that they should have won against the Los Angeles Lakers. 10 minutes. We'll be back after the game goes final, and we'll all be hanging out with you. We hope that it's not as late as it has been. No 10 o'clock start. We get the 9 o'clock start. That means no overtime, and we're all good on this Saturday night where we can hang out together. For Derek, Kyle, Bree, I'm Devon. We'll see you 10 minutes after the game goes final. Sixers Suns. We'll talk to you then. Enjoy.
We all silly like the man.